Hi, this is your instructor Yüksel Günal. This week, I'm going to talk about fragments and also various UI elements that one can use in order to build Android applications. Now, I built an application and I provided as part of the lecture as a zip file. All you have to do is unzip it and then import it into your Android Studio to be able to run it. Now, let me show you how you do import. Assume you have a project someplace on your disk. It's what I gave you, but unzip it first. Then you go to File, then you go to New, then you say Import, and then you find the location of the file, the project to be imported. Choose the import the project to be imported, the root directory of the project to be imported. Let's see, it's somewhere over here, and then just click OK. I'm not going to repeat it here because I already have the project, but that's essentially what you do. Again, let me show you. File, New, Import Project, and choose the project in your disk. Okay, that's all you need to do. Then wait for Android Studio to build the application. Now I already built it. This is the application, and we'll go through various parts of this application. And before I do that, in this brief lecture, I want to show you how it runs. Now, this time I'm using a tablet emulator. This is different than what I was using before as the device emulator. This is a 10-inch tablet emulator, and the program. And I started the emulator in landscape mode rather than portrait mode. And click on UI widgets demo. And this is what comes up. So the subject of this week is fragments. Fragments are used in order to build dynamical UI elements. And in the example that I have various fragments. The primary fragment that I built is a list fragment. A list fragment is essentially a sort of like an activity, but it's actually constructed within the activity by the activity, and it has a number of elements or a number of items. There's buttons, there's text views, date and time, radio group, checkbox, and spinner. I wanted to take this opportunity to go over the fragments to also give you an idea about the various UI elements that Android has support. Of course, this is not the complete list. There are a lot more sophisticated UI elements, but these are the most commonly used ones, and the rest you can look them up. But the principle is that the fundamental idea is the same. There's a way to build an element, and there's a way to interact with an element. And the way interaction works is through interfaces, Java interfaces. If you're not if you're not fresh on the concept of an interface, please go back to Java lecture notes that we had, review them again. But also the examples we had earlier in the Android should make it clear. Now, let's see what happens if I click buttons. So when I click buttons, I'm going to demo a few different button objects. For instance, this is an image button. As you see, this has the shape of a button, but there is an image displayed in the button itself. If you think about some of the Android applications or professional Android applications, they don't usually come with plain vanilla buttons like this one or this one. Like, okay, click me. Just a very basic button. They are more sophisticated. There are images associated with the buttons. Okay, I click on it, email button, click, and I'm going to show you in the code how this is done. We've done examples of this, but it's going to be a repetition. However, still it's worth to go over them once more. So I have 4 different button examples. The first one, image button, and the only difference between this one and that one is the fact that I have an image in the button displayed. An image is displayed in the button instead of a plain vanilla shape. I have the image. Now, this is a so-called toggle button. It has 2 states, off and on. Okay, so that's the function, basic idea. You click on it, it becomes on. You click on it, it becomes off. And there's a similar button called the switch button, or switch, just switch. It's also on/off. See, you click on it, it's on. Click on it, it's off. And if you think about some of the applications you're using, for instance, you can turn Bluetooth on and off in your Android device. For instance, you can use this kind of a button to if you're building an application where you want to have something to be turned on or off by the user. And for instance, in settings, as I said, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or data service can be turned on or off. Okay, and I'm going to show you how this is going to be displayed. Slightly different than the regular button. Again, click on it, and this is what I display. And this is the kind of interaction I'm talking about. I wrote specific code for this text message to be displayed. And you can do anything, of course. You can, in the case of, again, Bluetooth, when this is clicked to on, you turn the Bluetooth on. If it's clicked off, you turn the Bluetooth off. So the actual implementation will depend on what you're trying to do. Now let's go back. Oh, by the way, this is another fragment, built as a fragment. And the whole thing is maintained by one single activity. So to give you the big picture, I have an activity, and I have fragments in the activity. I'll also show you how you can actually display them side by side. But for this class, we're just going to show them in separate panels. Now click on text views. There's no I haven't implemented any interaction here. I'm just showing you various text fields: large text, medium text, small text, new text, irregular text. Okay, these are all supported by Android. Now, date and time, you click on it. There's support for analog clock. There's support for time chooser, and there's support for date chooser. I did not show a full example with this. I just showed how to build those. But you can, again, as I said before, all you have to do is define an interface and then capture the events when the buttons are clicked. Let's look at the radio group. A radio group consists of radio buttons. Radio buttons allow your user to choose one option among multiple. For instance, if I click red, yellow will be unselected. If I click yellow, red will be unselected. And as I'm doing this, I'm displaying a message. Okay, so part of the homework, next homework, is to add another button here, call it blue, and then introduce some interaction with it, such that when blue is clicked, the message blue selected will appear. Now, the checkboxes is somewhat like radio buttons, except in the case of a checkbox, you can choose multiple checkboxes. For instance, let's say you're developing a travel application, and there are a bunch of cities that you wanna allow the user to select. You can say, okay, choose Antalya, and Bodrum, and then you see as I'm selecting, there is some interaction going on. Unselect Fethiye, or deselect Fethiye, or Antalya, deselect Antalya. So that's how checkboxes work. And spinner. Spinner, you see it's a drop down. So I have a list of elements here. It's a drop down. What I have here are the planets. So when you choose a planet, okay, that's what's going to get displayed. So that's another nice UI feature. This actually allows you, again, similar to radio button. This is kind of like a radio button in a way, because it has a list of items to select from, and you can choose one of them. Okay, so that's what we're going to implement. And as I said, I uploaded the source code. It's not very well documented, I must admit. I uploaded the source code, but it's readable. If you look at the lecture notes together with the code, it should be readable. So in other words, the documentation of the code is in the lecture notes. So the next thing we're going to do is to look at some of these pieces of programming.